So yeah, this is a very bold statement. But yes, I don't want to break this to you, but you're being raped by the press. And like all rapes, it's with no consent. And the main difference is it's more of a psychological rape rather than a physical rape. But I would like to start off by defining the key term rape culture. What is rape culture after all? And surprisingly, it's more present in our lives than we actually think it is. The term describes an environment in which rape is normalized. Rape is accepted as something inevitable. And rape culture teaches people not to be raped instead of teaching people not to rape. And rape culture doesn't necessarily mean that an individual is promoting sexual and assault in a public or active manner. Rape culture can be seen in its most unexpected forms. For instance, ads that glamorize sexual assault, like the one from Dolce Gabbana, rape jokes, movies or articles or video clips like the one from Blurred Lines that trivializes rape. Now, the problem of doing these things or publishing these things is that it demeans the impacts of sexual violence or sexual assault. Um, but what is the problem with that, despite the obvious? In news stories, for example, the words and the phrases used to describe rape victims and the perpetrators can have a significant impact on the public's perception of norms about what is acceptable or excusable when it comes to sexual violent behavior. Now, exposing the victim is also very common. As if everything the victim has been through wasn't enough, the press tends to put he or she in the spotlight again. And this can be even more traumatizing for the victim, as sometimes the perpetrator's name is not even mentioned in the article. And news report that shows empathy for a sex offender or that subtly promotes rape culture can also negatively influence the behavior of individuals in our society. Now, it is proven that the more rape culture in the press, the more rape there is. Statistics reveal that rape happens more often in communities where the news media reflects rape culture rather than just tell the story in a more factual manner. The tone of the coverage and the word choices can be interpreted as showing empathy for the sex criminals and blame the victims. Now, as Matthew Baum, a journalist, says, this also influences the police's approach to the case. And the police may not even take the case forward as there is not enough information or evidence about the perpetrator. Sometimes the rapist is even excused of the crime because of the way in which the girl here in Brazil, the whole process of abortion than the rape itself. Yes, we know it's her uncle, but her story is the one being told. And after this was published, the only thing that we ever heard about the perpetrator, in this case her uncle, was that he was being arrested. But I mean, that was it. I didn't even see his face or know his full name. They were mentioned just a few times. Now, this headline, for example, focuses a whole lot more on the girl and in her abortion than on the rape and the perpetrator. By telling the girl's story, the press is inducing us viewers and spectators to be shocked by the whole situation. Of course, she's 10, she's now pregnant, she's getting an abortion, but the shift focus away from the seriousness of rape. And before the girl got pregnant, she kept the rape a secret. Of course, but why? Why do victims tend to keep this a secret? And the first reason why, and the most common reason why, is because of victim blaming and shaming. And the press argues, what did the victim do that influenced that rape? Secondly, the family's reaction to it. Some families don't even believe in that person's stories and end up doing nothing about it and thinking it's nothing serious and something that shouldn't be taken care of. Now, something very common is also the exposure by the press. Now, telling the whole story and making the victim relive that trauma. Or the police or the government might as well do nothing about it, the fourth reason. Cases might not even be taken seriously by the law enforcement. And last but not least, the constant fear of experience that disturbing event again, if the rapist decides to get revenge, etc. Now, does this conform to what studies are saying about rape culture? 7.5% of Brazilian victims of sexual violence notify the police. And in the US, it varies from 16 to 32%. So only a few people. Now, what Matthew Baum says in the Quarterly Journal of Police Science is, we find that rape culture in the media predicts both the frequency of rape and its pursuit through the local criminal justice system. Its jurisdictions where rape culture was more prevalent, there were more documented rape cases, but authorities were less vigilant in pursuing them. And the statistics also prove this further. There is a very clear link between the volume of rape coverage from the press and the reports of rape cases. New coverages that contain elements of rape culture tends to focus more on the people involved in the case and less on the severity or criminal nature of the incident itself. Now, the stories that lack evidence of rape culture focus more on the investigations and judicial proceedings, and they often use words such as suspect and sentence, and seldom include contextual language such as drink and night. And the news coverage is much less likely to reflect the rape culture in areas where single women are more important to the newspaper bottom lines, as they are the target audience for these newspapers. And where a higher than average proportion of readers were single women, there was far less rape culture in local newspapers than it would be expected by chance. Now, how exactly does the press do it? Firstly, they imply the victim consent. So news articles are more likely to mention a sexual or relationship between the victim and the accused, particularly in an educational setting. So, for example, a student, a teacher, a school. They also use victim-blaming language. So they focus on the circumstances of the incident, particularly those that might cast doubt on the victim's psychological state. So they included external factors like drink and parties. They also show empathy for the accused, which is mind-blowing, by using words such as associated with sports. So player, team, and football, they refer to the alleged perpetrator as a suspect. They also question the victim's credibility. They empathize with the victim's account of events, so accuse, allege, and during adversarial court proceedings, so defense, prosecuted, attorney. And something very common, the press also shifts the focus. It describes the victim's clothes rather than the offender, focus on the backstory of the victim rather than the rapist itself. But boys will be boys. She was drunk and she was wearing shorts and a crop top is no longer an excuse for rape. It never was, but it shouldn't be anymore. Then what should we do? We're not part of the press. How can we change how rape is perceived and how people see rape and treat rape within our inner circle? So first, redefine masculinity. Take a critical look at what masculinity means to you. Redefine the concept of masculinity through feminist lens and using gender equal principles. Secondly, listen to survivors. Follow the Me Too, Time's Up, and Ni Una Menos movements on social media. Watch the interviews, read their stories, listen to them, let them be heard. Thirdly, educate yourself, not only for your own good, but for the future generations that are yet to come. Educate yourself, question violent ideals and gender stereotypes, understand the importance of consent, understand the importance of it and how that can impact your surroundings.
2 minutes, Sophia.
Okay. Now talk about rape. Be an active bystander. Discuss rape within your friend group. Make that a common topic. Listen to people. Listen to stories. Something very recurring when talking about rape, again, is the victim blaming. Stop that, and the victim blaming culture. If someone should be ashamed of rape, it should be the perpetrator and not the victim. And last but not least, stop normalizing everyday patriarchal behaviors. These are so embedded in our society that they are invisible to our eyes. We end up not realizing how the media and the press molds us to think that rape or sexual assault is less serious than it actually is. So break that cycle, leave that box, understand the seriousness of rape, be able to filter whatever you read in the media, and listen to those voices of young girls and young boys that are usually left unheard. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Sophia, for that presentation. I can see that many people have been touched by your words and what you said today. We have some questions coming in. So Victoria Constantino, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. Sophia, I know your presentation was focused more on the process to approach the rape, but can you give another example of how rape culture is promoted in like very common and real life scenarios?
Yeah, sure. So this is a very common question because, as I said, it is very invisible to our eyes, and we end up experiencing little parts of rape without even noticing it. But I read an article the other day about Greek life in universities, especially American universities, and the idea of only allowing fraternities to host parties, only allowing fraternities to bring the drinks to the parties. They might as well be creating invisible rape culture to a certain extent, as girls go to the boys' parties and they have more control of what you drink, what you wear. They create kind of a dress code for every party. So I think that, especially because we're all leaving for college this year, I think that we should all have that in mind in order for us to be prevented from that to happen to one of us.
Right. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you for that question there. So now, Sophia Fregonese, I think you have a question as well. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, actually, I don't think it's more of a question. I just wanted to compliment what Sophia said because I really liked your presentation. I think it's such a relevant issue for today, and we really need to be more educated about this. And I wanted to know if you also agree with me that I've realized that when there are like false rape accusations, the media makes them more like it's more of a big deal than another rape case. So like many people are raped, and the media sometimes doesn't find it important enough to, say the case.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But when someone is falsely accused of rape, then it's like a whole big deal. It's So do you think that that also contributes to this rape culture?
Yeah. So thank you. So thank you for your question and thank you for the compliments. I agree with you. I think that in Brazil, I can use Brazil as an example. Rape at all isn't taken as serious as it should be. But yes, I agree. The cases that are reported, usually reported in the press, or the cases that the police choose to actually research it and solve it, they don't require a lot of evidence. So if the person just has a good story to tell, even though it's not true, they'll possibly take care of that or report that because it's juicier. The press just wants to sell that story, not solve the problem, and that's the problem. That's the issue.
Right. Thank you, Sophia. Well, both Sophias. I hate to be